Welcome to our wealth building call on behalf of the Emerson Group. My name is Nick Emerson. I am the owner and operator of the Emerson Group, and we specialize in working with real estate owners in buying, selling, and reinvesting using the 1031 exchange strategy. Today's call, we're going to be talking about the basic elements of a 1031 exchange, including the structure, the important timelines that need to be met, the reasons why investors complete 1031 exchanges, and how you can defer all capital gains from both the state and the federal government to complete a successful 1031 exchange. So what is an exchange? Per the definitions code, an exchange of real property used for business or held as an investment solely for business or investment that is the same of like kind. In other words, what's most important is an exchange is a swap of income property for income property. So don't focus on the asset type, focus on the function. Is this property being used for investment purposes, or is this property something that I'm occupying as a primary or second home? One of the most common questions I get is, can I 1031 exchange out of my primary or second home? And the short answer is no, you cannot. It has to be investment property. Like kind requirement. Now, what can we exchange into? Well, the good news is there's a lot of things that you can exchange into. So if you look at this slide here, we're going to go over different types of assets and opportunities for you to reinvest into using a 1031 exchange. As you'll see, there's single family homes, townhouses, right? A lot of what you would expect to see. There's a lot of other things on here, though, that maybe you didn't know was an option. I, for one, had no idea that the windmills that I passed by in Palm Springs out in the desert do, in fact, have a parcel number and is something you can invest in. Another option would be oil or gas, mineral rights. I've got a colleague of mine who sold their duplex and reinvested the money into gas and mineral rights in Texas. So these are all options that are available to you. And again, I want to stress it's investment property for investment property. Just think along those lines. And if it's not on the list of things that you're considering reinvesting into, feel free to shoot us a question. Now, the basic overview of a 1031 exchange, the timelines. So you have 45 days to identify after you close escrow on the property that you've sold. So what is identifying? That's physically writing down property addresses of properties or assets that you would be considering reinvesting into or are discussing buying as part of fulfilling the exchange. What I like to remind people is that when you work with us or those who are experienced with 1031 exchange, we start the process well in advance of 45 days. In fact, this first day we start talking about what is our plan, what's our motivation, where are we going, what do we want to invest in, why. We get very clear on why and what our target is, so that when it comes time to put the home or your property on the market for sale, we've already got crystal clear vision of exactly what our target is, where we're going to be looking to buy the property from. And ideally, if we're operating at the level that we should be, we've already identified and potentially already negotiated a deal before the 45-day period even expires. That is the target, not waiting until 45 days. It's having something already identified and in escrow when you're in the 45-day period. Another important timeline is the 180 days to close. So from the day you close escrow on the property you're selling or relinquishing, you have 180 days to close escrow on the reinvestment property or properties. As I've said, if we're doing this process the right way, 180 days is way more time than we should need to be able to successfully close escrow. Unless, of course, there's some longer escrow period that was negotiated for that particular purchase. As I mentioned before, like kind. So this goes back to either investment or use of business. For investment or use of business, cannot be a primary or second home. The purchase amount. In order to defer all taxes, you need to reinvest at or above where you've sold. For instance, you sell a property for $1 million. We would be looking at properties for $1 million or greater to exclude or defer all taxes. Now, something I want to make note of is you can do a partial exchange. And what I mean by that is you can sell a property for $1 million and you can reinvest into another asset for $800,000. Just know that you're going to pay taxes on the difference between $1 million and $800,000. So $200,000 will be subject to capital gains that you'll be paying towards. So understand you can buy up, leverage down. There's a benefit by deferring taxes for a portion of it than none of it. Okay, identification rules. There's 3 options that you have to identify. Really, the main ones I like to cover is the 3 property rule and the 200% rule. The 3 property rule is just simply identifying 3 properties or assets that you would reinvest into. Now, this would make sense in a market like in San Diego where you're selling here and buying here. However, a typical example is someone who might be selling in San Diego and let's say reinvesting into Texas. Well, in that market, you're typically going to find properties are half the price, if not a third of the price of San Diego. So if I sold a property for $1 million and I only had 3 properties to identify, well, you could see how that would pose a problem. So in this case, I sell $1 million property, I get to identify as many properties are within $2 million. So $1 million sale, 200%, $2 million worth of properties I get to identify. So if I were buying in Texas, that might look like 6 or 8 properties to fit into that $2 million rule. Another item I want to note is that during the identification process, you don't need to turn your sheet into the intermediary or 1031 exchange contact until you're at the 45 days. So what you can do is mentally make note of properties, but instead of turning it in, pulling it back, changing out a property, turning it back in, just know you have a right to change, remove things, add things, so long as you have the firm set reinvestment properties by day 45. So for this other example, 95% rule, must purchase 95% value of all properties identified. This typically is for much larger assets, not a rule that I'm going to cover unless you have specific questions about it. We can definitely cover that on a separate call. Outside of that, the main rules you want to understand is 3 property rule and 200% rule. So what taxes am I able to defer? Great question. Federal tax capital gains states either 15 or 20% depending on your taxable income. So 20% if your taxable income is above $445,000 if single and above $501,000 if married, filed jointly. The investment income tax or the Obama tax is 3.8% of AGI or 200%, rather 200K above single or 250 married. And then depreciation recapture. This is something that a lot of people are not familiar with or not even on their radar. So every year, whether you recognize it or not, you're depreciating the property as an income property. So if you were to depreciate this property for 20 years and then decide you wanted to sell it and not reinvest using a 1031 exchange, the government is going to ask that you pay 25% back of that of which has been written off. So let's say you have an asset for $1 million. The land value is $200,000. The improved is $800,000. Let's say you've been writing that property off for $20,000 a year. Well, let's say it's been 10 years and you've written off $200,000. Well, in that instance, you'd be required to pay 25% and or $50,000 back to the government for not taking the full benefit of depreciation or using that benefit, but then selling the asset. Understand when we add these up, depreciation recapture at 25%, let's say 15% capital gain tax rate. And then you're looking at the state of California, which we'll go into next. You could be looking at taxes in excess of 40%, and that's pretty common, which is why a lot of people are looking at a 1031 exchange option to get out of that position, or maybe just take a portion of the proceeds, but still defer the majority of the taxes. So looking at the slide here, this is a copy of what you would expect to receive in escrow from the escrow company, right? So you'd be filling out this withholding form for the state of California. As you can see, the rates range anywhere from 8.84% to 15.8%. So understand, when you add this up with depreciation recapture, the federal tax capital gain rate, again, we could be looking at a tax rate of excess of 40%. That's not uncommon. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of what you're looking at and why you'd be looking to defer the taxes on an income property. The next conversation is the reasons why people 1031 exchange. There can be a lot of different motivations behind why someone would 1031 exchange. It's not just because they want to defer taxes. There's a lot of investment reasons why people will conduct a 1031 exchange. So the first example is just merely cash flow. Someone wants to take an asset that is performing maybe under market or under an opportunity they have available to them, and they want to be able to maximize that. So they sell maybe their detached property that's generating $1,000 a month, and they turn that into a 3-unit property or a triplex that's then generating $2,000. So they were able to defer all taxes, reinvest the money, right? Leverage up into a larger price point and generate more income. That's a win. Secondly, depreciation. If you've owned a property for more than 27.5 years, you no longer have a depreciation benefit. There's a zero for you to write off. In that case, there is an economic reason for you to consider options to reinvest so that you can be deferring the income with depreciation schedule. Now, an example for myself, I'm not waiting 27.5 years to have to exchange out of a property because I'm actually doing an accelerated depreciation. So that means that within 5 years, all I've written the majority of the depreciation off, and I could be looking to reinvest that into another property just for tax purposes. So understand there's a lot of reasons within that depreciation conversation. The other one's appreciation, right? So a lot of people say, well, what do you want when you're looking for an investment property? Well, I want appreciation and cash flow. Well, you can't always have both. You can have a little bit of both. That's not to say that you might not have a chance to capture some great appreciation and cash flow, but typically you want to be clear on what is the game that you're playing or strategy you want to incorporate. Are you younger and more concerned about just a larger nest egg or equity? Therefore, you'd be more inclined for an appreciation opportunity. Or maybe you're a little bit older and you're looking to plan for retirement and you want to make sure you have a certain income stream for retirement. So finding properties that are a better cash flow location or state would make more sense based on your specific structure and time horizon and what your goals are. Another one's conversion. So this would look like your forever home option, right? So selling an income property, buying a property that may become an asset you move into or would consider moving into. The government and the IRS actually have code written in that tells you how to do this successfully. So in this case, you're able to sell a property, reinvest, and after 2 years, you do have a right to convert that property into a primary residence. Understand you still need to speak with your CPA to make sure everything is done per the code, but there is code written by the IRS specifically how to do a 1031 exchange for your forever home. Next one is consolidate or diversify. So this might look like you own 6 single family or detached properties, or want to take those 6 different roofs, those 6 different central air units, those 6 different plumbing systems, and we want to convert that into one asset, maybe a 10 unit or 12 unit apartment building. That's going to ultimately help save money economically just by having one property management company, having one roof, having one plumbing system. So that might look like just to reduce the burden of overall managing the property, or just the simplicity of it in taking 6 different properties and converting it into one. Reduce management burdens. Along with that, another option that a lot of people might look into is something known as a DST, a Delaware Statutory Trust. In this instance, you're really putting yourself in a position where everything is professionally taken care of by a financial company, a management company, and you're collecting mailbox money. This is the definition of passive income. There's no active decisions you need to make. There's no late phone calls trying to fix a leaky toilet or a plumbing issue. It's going to the mailbox or checking your bank for the check every month. Another one is estate planning. In this example, maybe you're looking at, you have kids living in a couple different areas throughout the United States. And rather than having, your assets in a location your kids are not going to move to or be visiting, you might look to find a way to take your assets and redeploy them into locations that better serve your family and your kids, so that when they do in fact inherit those properties, they're in a market that they live in, that they know, and they have the network to help them manage or put together a strategy for whatever they may choose. Lastly, use and profession. So what this would look like is selling a duplex, let's say, and then instead of investing it into another multifamily or another investment property, you invest it into your own building, maybe that you have your own company in. So one of our offices located in a mixed use. There's 8 rentals and 4 offices. This example, we could buy the building, and our business does house within the actual asset. So we're getting write-offs both for our business and for the exchange. So as you can see, there's a lot of different reasons and motivations why someone would use a 1031 exchange to defer taxes, but also for a multitude of other reasons on top of deferring taxes. Now, to really drive it home, we thought it'd be a great way to provide an example for a client that we actually helped out. So in this case, the client actually, this is from last year, 2022. Her name was Lillian Begg. She's 93 years old, and she's in the Idaho area. She had, as we can see, 2 condos here in the San Diego area. So she was dealing with some tenant issues, a vacancy, and she decided that it was time to make a change. So after consulting with Lillian, going over her options to conduct a 1031 exchange, we decided that was the best route for her. And so we were able to fix up her condos cosmetically, put them on the market at the same time, and we were able to put together 2 contracts on either one of them within a matter of 2 weeks. So we were able to close escrow in a 3-week difference between one condo and the other. And she was able to 1031 exchange into her property here in Crimson Drive in the Idaho area. So she took 2 old beat up condos. She consolidated and bought a brand new construction property that was within 20 minutes of where she lived. So this helped for her to consolidate, reduce the management burden, and help plan for her estate, as her son lives within 20 minutes of the property as well now, and no longer has to worry about inheriting properties that are out of state. Fast forward to today, Lillian's renting this new construction property out. She has management in place, and her strategy from beginning to end has worked out. Someone who's 93 years old, didn't live in San Diego at the time, we're able to help her turn her 2 condos into a brand new construction property. So we trust that by providing this example, you can see that with the right guidance and the right team of people, it really can reduce the burden and needs that you have on your end for us to be able to help facilitate and put together a very clear and well thought out plan, depending on what your needs or your goals are. Last one I wanted to harp on here is two others, which is one, I talked about buying your dream home for a 1031 exchange. So the example I'd like to give on this one is a client we helped out in 2021. They were able to sell 3 parcels of land in Denver, Colorado, and purchase a property here in the Fallbrook area, which is closer to Temecula here in California. With that property, beautiful property, got views on top of a hill with some land, pool. That's eventually going to become their second home that they're going to enjoy because their kids and grandkids now are here locally. So they were able to take what was several parcels of dirt that was generating some income, yet now they're able to fund their retirement as far as their forever home and do it in a manner that defers a large portion of what would have been paid to Uncle Sam. One of the reasons why we love this 1031 exchange conversation. It just preserves wealth, helps you accomplish more investment and personal goals and dreams, and make sure that you preserve your legacy and your wealth for your family. The last one I wanted to go over is the reverse exchange, which due to low inventory, guess what? We're still in a low inventory market here in San Diego and a lot of markets across the US. So this is typically going to be a much more complex process, because in this case, you're actually going to buy the property that you would reinvest into first, then sell the property that you own. So why would someone do this? Well, a great example is client who came across an amazing opportunity, and that opportunity dictated selling and conducting the exchange. So one of the client examples I have for this is an opportunity in the Sedona, Arizona market. He was presented this opportunity as a vacation rental, and because of the price and the opportunity, he made certain to jump on it. And in exchange for that, we helped sell his property, which was a detached home in the Mount Helix area. And he was able to then quadruple how much money he was making on that asset as far as income every month. So that made sense as to why he did the reverse exchange. Generally speaking, reverse exchanges tend to cost about $5,000 to $6,000. And again, are a much more complex setup. So if that's something where you're interested in diving more into that, happy to schedule a call and talk separately about it. Other than that, know that reverse exchanges generally are a reflection of maybe 1 out of every 100 exchanges completed, and very specific to the opportunity. I hope you guys have found a lot of value in the conversation we're having around 1031 exchange. I wanted to offer you guys ways in which we can help. As you can see, I'm happy to schedule a call with you guys to go over any questions, a specific 1031 exchange scenario you might have. We're happy to do an asset performance test where we can really go over what is your current profits, net cash flow, and the performance of your rental property or properties, and what that looks like relative to our current market opportunities right now. Feel free to request information about rental property rates, as far as comparing your current property to what the market is. And lastly, if you'd like to check out past or upcoming calls, feel free to check out our YouTube channel. And other than that, I certainly hope and trust that you guys have gotten value out of this call. It's our goal to make sure that we provide great information and value so that you can continue building wealth and leaving a legacy worth having. So thank you guys again. Have an amazing rest of your day. And cheers to building wealth and real estate through investments. Until next time.